Hi, and welcome to another episode of STS Knows Best. I am your steak technology specialist, Jared, and today I'm going to answer some questions that I've gotten about using YouTube. Some wards and some steaks are still using YouTube when they broadcast their meetings, but really the church has asked us to all standardize around one platform, which is Zoom, and they've asked us to utilize their really neat platform, Gospel Stream, so that way we can get the broadcasts out to the people in our units and make it easy and no more codes and all that other great stuff. So why are we still using YouTube, or why am I even talking about it? Well, there is a couple special unique cases. One of them is there is a limit to how many people can join a broadcast even with our paid Zoom account. That number is 500. Now, unless every single person in your ward happens to sign in with their own unique account, you're probably not going to hit that 500 person limit. So when would that ever be an issue? Well, for an example, in our steak, sometimes we'll do a special steak broadcast, and our steak conference will have up to 500 people sometimes who will join in for one reason or another, especially because we have a very large steak. So when that happens, you need to have an alternative for an overflow. Also, sometimes you're going to do broadcasts of a nature that aren't related to sacrament. We should be only doing our sacrament meetings on that platform. But you know, if it's a funeral or a special fireside and you want to make joining the event super easy for anybody and not have to go through knowing a broadcast code through the Gospel Stream app or through the church's broadcast site, you can use YouTube in those examples, but you don't have to give up using the same Zoom platform and the same Gospel Stream platform that members of your unit are used to using. So I'm going to show you how to actually do both simultaneously. So we're going to simulcast a broadcast on both YouTube and through our Zoom platform, which is, of course, using the Gospel Stream platform, all at once. It's a really cool trick, and it's easy to do. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So first thing is I'm going to switch into our little interface here that I've prepared. This is not the one I would normally use. I just kind of made one up just for the sake of this video. But here we've got our chapel and our program side, and our preview side is a loop of Tabernacle Choir videos. I just swapped it over so you could see the video looping there. All right, so now we've got this going, but this isn't, of course, set up or anything yet. We haven't even started our virtual camera. First thing we need to do is we need to create these events. Now, I've already taken the liberty of signing in advance to a couple of these platforms. Number one, step one, you need to go into zoom.us in order to create these webinars. This is something I covered in more detail in a previous video. So if you don't know how to set up a webinar in Zoom, go check out that video. I don't want to schedule a meeting. You got to make sure you schedule a webinar. That is very important. And you can see I have a couple already scheduled for upcoming steak conferences. In this example, let's say it's a fireside or something else. And I don't want to mess with these actual ones I have planned coming up, so I'm going to schedule another webinar. And in this one, I'm just going to make sure that no member actually thinks this is something they need to be on. So I'm going to say test. I'm just going to call this test. You could call it, you know, fireside or whatever else you want. I'm not going to be using a template. Just for the sake of this video, I will use today's date as the date that I'm doing that, and I'm going to say this is going to be a 2-hour one. Now, you don't have to do the thing where you schedule it for 10 minutes before when you want to go live. Like if it's going to start at 4 p.m., you don't have to put 3:50 p.m. to start. You can just start whenever. I would still put the actual time the meeting is scheduled to start. This isn't going to be recurring. I'm not going to require any authentication. Anyone with a link can just hop on in, and voila, I've scheduled it. Super easy. That's something that is no different than what we've done in others. Now I'm going to leave it on this screen here and come back to it in a second, because there's a couple things that we are going to do differently when we have some other things set up. Okay, so now that we've got that set up, we do have to make it available on Gospel Stream. So I'm going to go to a tab I have set up here. It's meet.churchofjesuschrist.org, and then you have your events page. And if you click on Manage, it'll take you to all of your upcoming broadcasts for your unit. I'm going to go to my steak one, and there is my event. And I'm going to publish it so it'll actually show up in the Gospel Stream app. Now, anyone who's going to use the regular stuff that they're used to, members who are used to just going into their app and joining the meeting anytime they want through their Gospel Stream app, this will still work the same way for them. So you're not making people who have a certain way they've taught themselves have to learn a new way. This just opens it up to more people to be able to use YouTube. So that's all you would have to have done for the traditional method to make it available. Now, I'm going to go into my YouTube page. A note about YouTube pages. You can use any YouTube account you want to do these broadcasts. You do not have to use a specific one created for your stake, and doesn't have to be linked to the same account that you use for Zoom. I would say though, I highly recommend that your stake or your ward or whatever unit you're doing this for, I highly recommend you create a YouTube account specifically for that unit. You don't want this to be muddled with your personal account, with your videos. You can see on my screen here, these STS Knows Best videos I've been making are all part of this account that I've created for the stake. You should do the same. You probably should also make sure that access is shared with the clerk of your unit. Maybe the bishop would be a good person to include in that. It shouldn't be a one-man show where you have your own account. Now that being said, let's go ahead and create the setup we need for the simulcast. So once you're signed into your YouTube account, up here at the top, you can see that. I just want to make sure my picture in the corner wasn't covering the button there. Okay, so you're going to click on Create. And you're going to click on Go Live. No, we're not going to go live yet. You're just going to prepare things for when you do go live. So here you can see I already have one scheduled on August coming up. That again is for an actual broadcast. So I'm not going to touch that one. But I am going to click on Schedule Stream. And if you've done one before, you can use any previous one as a template. In this case, I'm assuming you've not done this before. And either way, I don't want to use these other ones. This is like a special fireside in this example. So I'm going to create a new one. All right, first thing, I've already set up my YouTube account. So every time I create a new one, I have this default text that fills in. Title just has the name of the stake, and description, I just say it's broadcast for members of the stake in the church. So I'm going to change these, and I'm going to say test fireside. Yeah, I'll just call it that. And I'll leave the description as is for this example. It's going to ask how you want to go live. We are going to use streaming software, namely OBS. Assuming that you've been watching my other videos, you know that we are using OBS for all of our stuff. Although interestingly, we're actually not using OBS to broadcast onto YouTube. Some people will say, well, you can do that in OBS. Yes, you absolutely can. But the simulcast that I'm going to do, the way I'm going to do it, is going to decrease the bandwidth you use, and it'll simplify the process. So we'll get to that a little further later. Category, there's a lot of categories to pick from. I think the one that fits what we do best would just be nonprofits and activism. I don't see one that says specifically for church, and we don't really fall into a lot of these other categories. And it doesn't really matter that much. I'm not going to worry about a thumbnail. I'll just let it auto pick one from the meeting. Playlists, you can create playlists if you have a playlist for all of your firesides, for example. You don't need to. I only have one playlist in my stake, and it's for these series of videos that I'm making. Last one, this one confuses people quite a bit on this page here. It says target audience, and is it made for kids, yes or no? And a lot of people go, well, of course this is family friendly, so I'm going to click yes, it's made for kids. No, it is not. Do not mark that. This is not the same thing to say it's safe for kids as it is to say it's made for kids. If you specify that you're making something for kids, it actually enables some other guardrails and protections to make it safe for kids. If you have questions as to what that means, there is a link here that you can click on and read later. The long story short is this isn't asking if it's safe for kids. They're asking if your target audience is kids. That puts up a whole bunch of series of walls and things that might make your video actually less accessible, so don't do that. Let's just leave it as no, it's not made for kids. It's made for families, it's made for the church members, but not a kid group or kid demographic. Now, if it is something regarding appropriateness for age, that's where the age restriction feature comes in, which by default is even hidden. And no, we're not restricting it by age group because, yeah, this is something that is safe for kids, but not made for kids. Okay, next page. It's going to ask you, I'm going to scroll back up to the top, if you want to have any chat options. No, I do not recommend letting people live chat on your broadcast, especially if it's something like a funeral. It's just not, I would say it's not the most appropriate environment for that. So my recommendation is no. I probably would not go that route, so I don't recommend you do. That's it for that whole page on customization. It's all just about the chat options, which we will not be utilizing. Last is visibility. Now, this is a question you will need to work out with your presiding authority. You have private, unlisted, and public. You do need to know the difference between those three options. The bottom one, the one that I have right now as my default, is pretty obvious. Public means that as soon as you go live, anyone and everyone is going to be able to see this video. They can search for it. So if someone knows there's going to be this broadcast and they don't have a link, they could just go to the stake or the ward YouTube page or even just search for it and it might come up in a general search on YouTube. That is the one that you're going to want. If it is something like the presiding authority and maybe the family says, hey, we have people all over the world that might be logging in for this funeral. Can you make it publicly available to everyone? Then yeah, by all means, you can go public. In some instances, you might want to try unlisted. Unlisted is what you would do if your presiding authority says, I want anyone who has the link to the video to be able to go and watch the video, but I don't want it publicly searchable. So unlisted means that if you go to YouTube and search for it, you will not find it. If you do any kind of Google search or any kind of search engine, you will not find it by searching. It is available to anyone who has the link though. So if the clerk emails the bishoprics and all the stake and they says, here's the link that we'll be using. You can have that link ready and everyone can use that link. Great. But if they don't have the link, they cannot find it. So it's almost like a way of protecting it from being visible to everybody. But anyone with a link could share it too. So if the bishop says, hey, these families have asked for a link, send it to them. Once they have the link, they have it. There's no passwords or anything protecting it. It's just no one's going to guess the link to it and no one is going to find it by searching. And the last and most restrictive is private. If you have the video in private mode, you can see your videos, and the only people that can see the videos are people with user accounts that you have specifically shared it with. So that's, even if they have the link, if you haven't shared it with their user account, they can't access it. And here is a place where you can pick who you are sharing it with. Now, this is extremely restrictive, and this can be also problematic because that means if someone tries to sign in, even if they have the link for some reason, they won't see the video. I don't recommend that unless you really know that you really want to keep this thing special and secretive. I'm going to make this one private in this example just because I am going to actually go live on this and I don't want the people subscribing to our stake broadcasts to get a notification if they've subscribed with notifications. I don't want them to get that notification saying, hey, the stake is broadcasting live right now. They will see it if I have it on public or something else. So in this example, I'm going private. But I would say, I'm recommending to you, you're going to want to usually go either with unlisted or public. Speak to the presiding authority before you make that decision. I'm going to go today, and again, I'm going to broadcast at 4 o'clock. I might start before 4, although system time right now is actually not. You don't have to put the exact time you want to start the broadcast. You just need to put the time that you actually plan the meeting to start. You can still start broadcasting anytime you want before the official published start time. So again, you don't have to put 3:55 or whatever. Just put the time you want it to start. People will get it. All right, those are the only 3 pages of setup you need for this part of it. Now I have created a live stream. I'm still not going live. It doesn't automatically start publishing the second I do that. Okay, there's a few things we need to do. Yeah, it's giving me an error message about a stream key. We'll get to that in a sec. Actually, let's get to that now. Here's the way that this works. You need to take the stream key, which is sort of like the special access passcode that whatever software you're going to use is going to use that to authenticate themselves or to get the permission to send that video stream into your YouTube channel. Stream keys are very important, and they're not the kind of thing that you want to get out into the public. You do not want to show your stream key to anyone else. If other people have your stream key, there is a chance that they could hijack your broadcast or broadcast something else on your channel without your permission. So stream keys are meant to be kept private. Do not share them with anybody else. But you are going to need them for the software platform you're going to broadcast from. Now, I did say that you can use OBS for this, but in this case, I'm not going to with the simulcast because I found what I think is a better and less intensive way to do it. And I mean less intensive on your network. Church networks aren't always very robust. You probably don't have multi-gig internet speeds in your building. So you need to find a way to make sure you're not maxing out your network load. And that is to send one stream out. That's why we're going to do this through Zoom. I'm going to grab my key from this YouTube page. I'm going to go back to my Zoom settings and I'm going to put it in Zoom. That way, when I go live on Zoom, I can push a button and it'll go, I'm still only sending one stream up to Zoom. Then Zoom on their servers, on their back end, they're going to send that same signal over to YouTube for me. So that extra bandwidth doesn't slow me down. That's the genius of this system. So first, how do we get this stuff? Well, I'm going to leave it on this page here, and I'm going to go back to that zoom.us page we were on earlier. This is the test broadcast that I made. And a little noticed section is this row of, it looks like just a row of text. These are actually tabs that don't look like tabs along here. It says details, invitations, these things here. Well, if you scroll to the side a little bit, you're going to see a live streaming tab. So we are going to click on live streaming. And it's going to say here that we can allow our Zoom webinars to also be on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, others through here. This, by the way, is through zoom.us, the web browser. Same place we created this. This is not in the Zoom program. You cannot do this. You cannot configure this from the Zoom program. And notice here the default setting is 500. When you hit 500 people on your Zoom stream, they need to be redirected to YouTube. You can set that, you can change that. You can make it less than 500. I don't think you can make it more than. But that's just an option. All right, so let's configure our custom streaming. So that's what this right here does. So I'm going to click on this, and it's asking for some information like stream URL, stream key, and some other things. Now, we are not really going to have any of this memorized, but we can get this all from that YouTube page. So first, stream URL. What is that? Well, if I look here on this page, it tells me right here on the bottom, my stream URL is this. This is not the key. This is not very secretive or something you have to hide. It's kind of the same for most people's. So I'm going to copy that just by clicking copy here, go back to my Zoom page, and I'm going to paste it in there. So now I've got my stream URL. Now I need my stream key. This is the one that's secret. This is the one you don't want to share. Up here at the top of the page, you can see I have stream key, default stream. There are many streams well, I have many because I've created a bunch of different broadcasts, and notice they all say Zoom. So those are my existing ones. You can just use your default stream. It's totally fine. And here is where you go to copy it. Notice that it doesn't show me the key here. If I hit manage stream keys, there's a place where I can pull it up and look at the key. You don't need to see it. And I'm not going to show you on my YouTube stream here. But I'm going to click on the copy, and now it's put it into my clipboard. So it's copied it temporary. If I click on stream key and paste, now I have it here. Now if I want to, I could click on the button show. And if I do that, click on that show, it's going to show in straight text what my key is. It's nothing very fancy. If you're really curious on your setup, you can click on show temporarily just to see what your key looks like. It's just a random looking string of, I don't know, 12 to 18 characters of letters and numbers with dashes in there. It's nothing special. And again, don't share that with others. Okay, so I have my URL and my key. Last thing is the live streaming page URL. What do they mean by that, and how is that different than the stream URL? That means, what is the redirection link? So if someone logs into the Zoom account, or if they click on through Gospel Stream, it sends them into Zoom, and Zoom says, oh, we've already reached our participant limit. Would you like to be sent to the YouTube stream? Well, it has to know where to send them to. How do you monitor that? So that's where you need to get up here in the top of the page. There is a little forward arrow. That is the share button. Click on that. And here are all the different ways you can share it with shortcuts, but it's easier just to grab the link from here. So it says video link, and then I'm going to click there that says copy, copied it to my clipboard, back to this tab, and paste, Control V. Now, this is not a key, so this is nothing you have to be careful. You can share this. In fact, you can share this with anyone you want. This is the meant to be publicly shared link. If it's a public one, you can share this. If it's unlisted, you could share this. This is also what you would send to your presiding authority or to the clerk or whoever's in charge of sharing the link. This is the link you would share. So you can recopy this link to send it to anybody you want to send it to. There's a couple check boxes at the bottom. One is a custom streaming service requires authentication. It doesn't unless you set up some changes on your page, which I haven't and I doubt you have. And last is configure live stream during the meeting. I don't recommend doing that, so I'm going to leave this as is and click save. Now that I click save, and I'm not going to save that into my browser. Now that I've done that, you can see I have my URL. I could click on show again if I want to check the key. I'm not going to do that here for you. And I could see the URL for viewing it. I can always delete this or edit this. You're going to want to remember that this is only for this one broadcast. So it's not like I'm going to reuse all these settings. Every time I'm going to configure one, I'm going to configure it fresh. Again, a lot of work if you plan on doing this every week. And really, the church doesn't want us broadcasting on YouTube every Sunday. So we're not doing this for everyday broadcasts. Okay, that is all you need to do in the Zoom.us. At this point, you can actually launch the Zoom app. Let me show you a couple other things first, though, that you can change. So I'm going to go back to my YouTube page. You can edit some of the information I had earlier, like the name, the category, the privacy settings. Those things we can change. One thing that I recommend you consider turning on is auto start and auto stop. Those are off right now by default. So let me turn that on and let me show you what that means. If I turn on auto start, it'll say, if you enable auto start, when I send, like from Zoom, if I go to Zoom and say start broadcasting onto YouTube, it'll automatically start on YouTube. I recommend that. If not, it can cause confusion. I once was doing a funeral for somebody and I could not myself be the one to do the broadcasting. So I had someone else doing the broadcasting, but I set it up on the back end. And I had thought that I had enabled this feature, but it turns out I didn't. So when the person who was broadcasting for me started trying to simulcast, he couldn't actually get it to show up on YouTube because I did not enable auto start and he couldn't sign into my YouTube account to start the session manually. So I highly recommend this unless you know you're not going to use it. Same thing with auto stop. If I've been broadcasting for 2 hours and I disconnect, obviously I'm going to want to stop the stream. So yeah, I'm going to enable auto start and stop. Another feature is enable DVR. This is one of the reasons why, and this is my guess I suppose, but I assume one of the reasons why the brethren have asked us not to make YouTube our default broadcasting platform is because everything that you throw up on YouTube can be archived as if you're basically recording it. And we shouldn't be recording all of our general sacrament meetings. That's not really how it's meant to be. So if you enable DVR, basically you're saying this will be automatically archived and available for anyone to re-watch. Now you can go back and delete things later, you can make them private or unlisted later, but by default everything you put here will be available for DVR, digital video recording, like to watch back later. If something like a funeral or a fireside, you might want that feature. So when I'm using this simulcast with YouTube, I do want that on. I am not using a 360 video camera, so I do not need that feature enabled, but if you did want to, you could. You could also enable closed captions. I will say if you just click on closed captions, the system is going to use its own AI algorithms to try and make up on the fly closed captions for you. Some do better than others. It doesn't force closed captioned on, by the way. It doesn't make it so everyone sees them. It means if someone clicks on the closed caption button, they get those closed captions. Because we don't know who is going to be viewing this, and there's a lot of members with a lot of different accessibility needs, it's a good idea to turn on closed captions. Just know that your results may vary. It's not like they're hiring a person to try and transcribe this in real time. It's not always the best, but it does a decent job with general conversation. It's not going to get names of members spelled correctly, that kind of thing. But it's nice to have as an option for those who need it. So I would personally turn closed captioning on. It doesn't force everyone to see closed captioning. All right, and then unlist live replay once the stream ends. So again, this is something that maybe you don't want this to remain public. If you turn this feature on, it basically becomes unlisted. So you can make it a public stream while the broadcast is going, and then once it's over, it'll switch to unlisted, so it's not publicly available, but people with the direct link could still go to it if they need to. So that's the settings that you can't do earlier. Those are settings that you do after you get to this page. You can't do those in the initial setup that I did at the beginning. Okay, now I've got this set up the way I like. Now we're going to open up the Zoom program and get signed in there. Oh, and before we broadcast in Zoom, of course, we have to get to our OBS, start our virtual camera, so we actually have something here. And then in Zoom, I'm going to hit start on my broadcast. I have video disabled. Let's get that on. All right, looks good. Make sure my audio settings are correct. It should be that cable AB that we set up in a previous video, and it is. And voila, we have now started our broadcast. I'm going to hide this, and I'm going to put this preview window over off to the side here. All right, so now you can see we've got our broadcast up and running. I don't anticipate anyone's actually going to join this broadcast. I would sure hope not. But there we are. Now I've got this going. Maybe I'm not ready to go live yet. Of course, I would transition, and then, yeah, everything would look great. But for now, I am setting up and I'm ready to go. Now, let's say it's time. I've got this broadcasting on Zoom. Now it is time to simulcast on YouTube. Because I've already pre-configured it in zoom.us on the browser, I can go down here where it says More, and you have all these options. One of them, the one that we want the most right here, and I know it's a little small on some of your screens, it says Live Stream. I'm going to click on that. And then you have a couple options. And some people have pointed out, yes, it does say Live on YouTube. However, if you click Live on YouTube right now, you are going to get a blank one that fits your default blank template. It's going to ask you to sign into YouTube. It asks you to give it a name. It's not going to use the link that you've already created. It's not going to use anything we've already set up. You do not want to use that feature because then you don't get all that great advanced work we set up, all those settings and everything. Instead, you want to go down here to where it says Custom Live Streaming Service. That is the one that you want. I also have it enabled to turn on by default. It says remind new attendees to watch live stream. So in other words, when people sign in, they'll be given a note that says, hey, we're also on YouTube, you can go there. Anyway, Live on Custom Streaming Service is what you're going to click. It already is going to open up this video this window by default, and it shows that Zoom is now going into that live streaming service, which in this case is YouTube. And it'll send you, once it's ready, it'll send you to the watching page for that. But this is not the dashboard. I actually don't prefer to use this. But notice this looks good. All right, this is what other people see. If it's a public video, this is what they will see. But I prefer to go back to this page, which we saw earlier, and notice that the same page I had set up earlier now gives me analytics. Pretty cool, right? And it tells me my stream quality right here. It says it's excellent stream quality. It tells me how many views I have, not just how many views, but it even gives me concurrent viewers. So it'll say so many people are watching at one time, but this many people views is how many people total have signed in to watch at some point. So it's kind of a lot of different metrics it'll give you. And you can check your stream health here and get more details and see a history of it. If you see that stream health is getting low, you may want to sign in and disable the Liahona network. You know, the network that everyone has their phones automatically connect to when they go in the building. That might slow you down a lot. So you may want to consider telling people either to not use their phones or just disable the Wi-Fi for them. You should be using the Lehigh network, or even better, a wired connection. And then you can disable all the wireless in the building and get a healthier stream. Another thing to note, so on this side here, you can see that I have my Zoom broadcast. And then up here I can see the YouTube. Look at that delay. That almost looks like two completely different videos or something. It's about 30 seconds off. That is not done by accident. That is intentional, so don't freak out. The audio and video will still synchronize for those watching YouTube. They're just seeing everything 30 seconds later. Don't worry. So this is what I'm sending right now, and this is what people are receiving. Not a big deal. Also at the top of Zoom now you can see that you are broadcasting on a custom streaming service. It'll say that in the YouTube bar while you're, or not YouTube, I'm sorry, in the Zoom app while you're doing that. So it says that up there. Now I can ignore these two. I could go back to my OBS, and now I can just change to, okay, now it's time for the meeting to go live, and they're talking, and I can, you know, use my controls, and it'll be a great broadcast, and, you know, the meeting is going fine. And then at the end of the meeting, you can transition back. It could be that video, it could be just a static shot, whatever you want to have, it doesn't matter. So I've got this. Now let's say we're done with the broadcast. It's been a couple hours. There's a couple ways to end this broadcast. You can just click on end stream here. If you haven't been monitoring in YouTube, or maybe you've been watching this screen the whole time, and this screen is fine, but this screen is not the one that gives you the metrics. This is just what other people see. This is the one where you're actually controlling it. This is the studio screen. You may want to end it this way, but I recommend just doing everything within Zoom. It makes it easier. Before I end this, one other caveat. Remember earlier under stream settings, I told you I recommend enabling auto start. It's grayed out now because we've already started. But if you did not click on auto start, and you go to Zoom and you tell it to start broadcasting, it'll load here, but nothing actually will be available to everyone else. So if you did not enable auto start, up in the top area where now it says end stream, it'll actually say start broadcast or start stream or something like that. You will need to click on that to actually start the stream, even though you started it on the Zoom side, if you did not enable auto start. Another reason why I like to enable auto start. Same thing with enabling auto stop. If you do not enable auto stop, you'll have to be on this page to click on end stream. But since I have it enabled, all I have to do is go back down here to where it says more. Actually, right now live stream has popped up for me anyway. But you can also go to more and live stream will be there. Either way, you'll have the option here, and now it says in big, well not big, but red letters, stop live stream. So if I want to stop the live stream, I click on stop. Now it disappears off here. And after a second, you're going to see it ends here. Now you'll notice that it took a second because remember, there's a delay. I have now ended. The auto stop will happen automatically. It did go black here. It doesn't quite end, but if I want to force it to, I can end, or I can wait longer. Eventually it will just end. Nothing else is going to be captured. It was kind of short. It was far shorter than the 2 hours I said it would be. It's only been 5 minutes. But yeah, I'm going to hit end stream here just to force it now instead of waiting, just so you can see some of the after stuff you get. So you'll get stream finished. You'll get how many views you had. What was the top number of people that were simultaneously viewing? This is total overall. This is how many at once. Average viewer was on for about 1.5 minutes. Well, that's not entirely accurate right now, but it gets more accurate as you watch like a 2-hour stream with hundreds of people. Likes, subscribers that came out of it, all that stuff. Now you can also go back to edit in studio. I'm going to click on that, but don't forget we're still actually live on my stream over here on Zoom. So I'm going to open up OBS, and I'm going to do this kind of feature I like to do at the end of a meeting. I'm going to hit fade to black, and that makes it end here. Then I like to end it for all in Zoom. I can minimize Zoom here, and then just transition to this so it's ready to go for the next time. All right, so I can tuck away OBS. I don't need it anymore. Now I'm in the page where I can edit this. If you do broadcast 15 minutes before the meeting starts, I do, of course you do, right? You want someone to log in and see something while they're waiting. So I do always start 10, 15 minutes before the meeting. But you don't want that whole 15 minutes of preliminary scrolling welcome screen to be part of the captured one you keep. So I always click on the edit option at the end of a broadcast, and I will move the cursor, you know, in a few minutes, however much I need, and I will trim it however much I want to cut from the beginning and the end, but mostly you're going to be cutting the beginning. So let's say I want to cut off the first 2 minutes because that was practice or whatever. So I'm going to cut that out. So now I'm keeping the parts here in blue, I'm dumping the parts in red. I'm not going to get into editing a whole lot here. You don't need me to play around with that too much because, you know. But let's talk about now changing the settings. So here we have channel content. I'm going to click on channel content. I'm not actually going to make those changes this time. I'll do that later, whatever. And then it doesn't show up unless you click on live, because it was a live broadcast. So you click on live, and there is the test fireside that I just did. Now I can change this right here. I can change this to any one of those 3 options. I can keep it private, unlisted, or public. Let's say the presiding authority says he wants a copy just for himself, doesn't want it available to anyone. Change it to private and share with his YouTube account. Maybe he wants it available to share with anyone who asks for the link, but not everybody. You would change it to unlisted. Or he says, hey, this was a fireside I want everyone to see anytime, or a funeral. Switch it to public, whatever you want to do. I'm going to leave this one on private for now. In fact, I'm actually going to delete this thing altogether, which you can also do. If you want to get rid of this broadcast, you don't need to keep it. Check with your priesthood authority first, but click on the options on the side here. Click on delete forever. You are going to have to check a box that says, I know I'm deleting this forever. It's not a mistake. And boom, it's gone. And there you go. So now you have the ability to do a really cool simulcast in those rare circumstances where we're talking, again, not a general Sunday meeting. You should be using just Zoom and the Gospel Stream platform for regular Sunday meetings. But special firesides, funerals, other special cases, if you want to simulcast, that is the best way to do it with YouTube. I hope this has been useful, helps you make the most out of your special broadcasts. This has been another edition of STS Knows Best. I am your Steak Technology Specialist, Jared. Thank you for joining me again, and we'll see you on another video.